Good afternoon. Welcome to the 5th Distinguished Lecture of the OUSL Distinguished Lecture Series. My name is Ishana Bevadan. I'm the Director of the International Academic Relations Division. Today is a special day for us. It marks the 5th Distinguished Lecture, and we have a distinguished speaker all the way from Canada, the Commonwealth of Learning. Today we have Dr. Godson Gatsha, the Education Specialist, Higher Education at the Commonwealth of Learning. And again, it's kind of a double whammy because we also have Professor Jacob Oppadei, Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, here with us today. So without further delay, I would now like to invite Professor Jacob to come and chair this session.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, student colleagues. It's my pleasure to share this important 5th Distinguished Lecture Series organized by the International Academic Relations Divisions of the Open University of Sri Lanka. I'm also feeling special that the distinguished lecturer is a gentleman that I have a great admiration for. He has over 30 years working experience in both conventional and open and distance learning environment. He has worked as a teacher, an ODL practitioner. He held the post of regional manager for several years at the Botswana College of Open and Distance Learning. Prior to joining the Commonwealth of Learning, which we call COL, in Vancouver, he was director of the South African Development Community Center for Distance Education and the executive secretary of the Distance Education Association of Southern Africa. He has also conducted a number of consultancy contracted by several international organizations, both from Commonwealth Secretariat, Commonwealth of Learning, Open Channel UK, and several to list from. He has published several peer-reviewed journals, articles, book chapters, and even textbooks. He has also presented papers at several international conferences on ODL. He's a reviewer of a number of journals, including being a book reviewer editor for the Commonwealth of Learning Journal of Learning for Development. As a regional manager, he was responsible for the deployment of ODL in western part of Botswana, and his duties include managing staff at the regional center, day-to-day operation of the offices, managing 13 study center and 25 satellite study center, negotiating and establishing partnership with several international and regional institutions. As director of SADC CDE, he was responsible for coordinating ODL capacity building at the SADC region, in particular in the following: ODL practitioner capacity building program, communication and team building, postgraduate diploma in distance education, masters of arts in distance education, also gender in our daily lives certificate, and he has organized and co-facilitated research and publication workshop on ODA for ODL practitioners. Our lecturer for this afternoon managed the publication of SADC International Journal on Distance Education. In addition, he taught postgraduate studies registered for the pressed certificate courses and Masters of Art in Distance Education throughout the SADC region. He also worked very closely with higher education institutions in both single and dual mode and senior government officials in the whole of the SADC region. He coordinated and co-facilitated the development of ODA policy for a number of countries: Botswana, Mauritius, Namibia, and Swaziland. He also networked and established partnership on ODL capacity building with ministries of government in Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Mauritius, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Swaziland. At the COL, where he presently works, he is the education specialist focusing on higher education. As educational specialist, higher education, he developed and managed a program initiative that aligns to the priority of specific countries to increase access to higher education, including supporting the development and implementation of ODA policies. His academic and professional qualifications include a PhD with specialization in education policy studies, a certificate in gender in our everyday lives, both from the University of Pretoria in South Africa. He also has a master's degree in education management from the University of Botswana and a master's of arts in distance education and postgraduate diploma in distance education, both from the Indira Gandhi National Open University in India. He also has a postgraduate diploma in monitoring and evaluation from the Stellenbosch University in South Africa and a graduate diploma in leadership. Without further delay, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to welcome to the podium our distinguished lecturer for this afternoon, who is a scholar and ODL godfather, to present to us this afternoon learner support, reflection on paradigm models, pedagogical approaches for the 21st century learners in higher education. Godson.
Thank you so much for the warm reception, Dr. Ishan, and thank you so much, Professor Abedai Jacob, for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is indeed a pleasure to be in Sri Lanka, and a special pleasure to be at the Open University of Sri Lanka. The Open University of Sri Lanka has been, for years, a key player in open and distance learning. Today's lecture is focusing on learner support, and what I will do is I will touch on learner support even in conventional settings, but the main part will apply mainly to dual mode institutions and dedicated open and distance learning higher education institutions. There are key questions that people ask about the 21st century learner. Who are they and what are their expectations? They have been given all sorts of names: digital natives, net generation. But however, in our constituencies, we still have those that are called digital immigrants. I mean, the adult learners who were born before the net generation, before 1980. However, some may consider these as analogs, but they have actually naturalized into the digital world. So they are part and parcel of the 21st century learners. Basically, I will focus on the conceptualization of learner support in past perspective, learner support services in higher education institutions, learner support systems. I will actually be using 3 case studies from Southern Africa and from Asia. However, I have protected the names of the institutions that I'm going to share with you, but those who know ODL players in some of these regions will actually be able to tell which institutions I'm talking about. And we'll look at, I'll say, the characteristics of the 21st century learners and see how the paradigm shift has occurred in terms of learner support. And then, whilst we are alive to the 21st century learners, we know, given the context in developing countries, the digital divide is great. I mean, we have pockets of areas that still are not connected, but we have learners who are learning at a distance in those places. We also have inmates and refugees and nomadic communities who either are hunter-gatherers or herders who may be moving their cattle in areas where there is no connectivity, but at the same time studying at a distance. What kind of innovative measures can we put in place to ensure that they are part of the 21st century learners in terms of the digital wisdom? And then we'll have those final remarks just to sum up. How do we conceptualize learner support? And the key questions are, how is learner support conceptualized? Basically, there are three components of learner support obtaining in higher education institutions, be it dual mode, dedicated ODL, or conventional. These three subsections of learner support services cannot be separated. I'm just mentioning them in that in terms of being three, just for our understanding. The university has to provide administrative support. This is the kind of support that it provides from pre-enrollment, enrollment, and during the course of study throughout, whether it's 3 years or 4 years in terms of record management, and right up to graduation and post-graduation in terms of following up the students so that it creates a solid alumni, which in turn can actually support teaching and learning as part of learner support of an institution. The other part of learner support that we have is personalized learner support, personal support. We know our students come into the university with challenges. They are of different backgrounds, different cultural background, and they have other psychosocial challenges that require some intervention. If the university is to enhance its throughput, retain the learners, learners with social challenges, problems, and so forth cannot actually perform to the expectation of the university. It's either they drop out, they get frustrated, and then they fail and discontinue their studies. So the role of personal support in that light is meant to ensure that the learners' learning difficulties are mitigated so that the learner can focus more on learning. And then the third component of learner support is academic support or learning support, whereby we have experts in the form of lecturers, professors, who actually ensure that the learner interacts with the content and facilitate the dialogue between the learner and other learners, between the learner and the tutor, so that the academic aspects, which more often is the focus of the learner wants that degree, and it is the role of the lecturer, the tutor, the professor to organize a conducive learning environment that can enhance the academic performance of the learner. The three subsections or subsystems of learner support, as I have indicated, cannot be separated. And in this era, you actually find that the online facilitator is actually doing all of them in one time, in terms of ensuring that the records, monitoring the chart, in terms of counseling, in terms of the academic support. So the three subsystems that I'm actually explaining are basically part of the broader learner support services that any institution actually offers in order to ensure successful completion of programs. Why is it critical for higher education provider to understand the learner profile? In order for the university to design a learner support system or model that actually meets the needs of the learners, it is imperative that the university advisors know who their learners are. Are they working? Are they under 21? Are they females? Are they males? What are their socio-economic background? Knowing the profile of the learner actually enables the institution to mitigate the barriers to learning. For instance, if there is a deserving learner in terms of academic performance, and the learner comes from a socio-economic background that is poor, the university can find ways of actually seeking from its partners funding or scholarship to ensure that that learner who is gifted, who deserves to be sponsored, does not drop out because of financial reasons. If the university is aware of the social challenges that most learners expect, that can facilitate even recruitment in terms of ensuring that there are enough advisors who are psychologists who can actually make assessment and ensure that learner support is tailored to meet the needs of the learners. So it is critical that we know the profile of our learners. And for effective learner support, what is it that we want to see in place? We are saying there is a paradigm shift from teacher-centered approaches to learner-centered approaches. In other words, when the university is fully aware of the needs of the learners, the profile, and so forth, it is possible to design a learner-centric model of learner support. In distance education, for instance, we have seen this happening whereby open universities try by all means to take the education to the people through a decentralized regional system, study centers, satellite centers, and so forth. In conventional settings, we have seen student advisors being employed, counselors being employed to ensure that the personalized learner support that addresses the needs of each learner is in place. It may not be robust, but attempts are actually being made in developing countries to have specialized experts who actually do the counseling before the learner actually chooses the program or enrolls. However, the choice remains that of the learner. The learner support officer or advisor merely supports the learner and helps the learner to make a wise choice so that tomorrow the learner does not actually drop out, so that he makes an informed decision. So effective learner support, therefore, is generated when an institution has a robust and technologically enhanced administrative structures, strong counseling, and academic services. Administrative structures here are very critical because if there is poor record management and poor support from administrative staff in terms of either facilities, in terms of accommodation, in terms of general infrastructure and even the architecture of the university matters. Because learners, when they come to the university, the most important thing is for them to feel belonging to the institution. That belongingness is critical for success, for managing, for governance, in the sense that when learners feel they belong to the institution, there is social presence of lecturers and of other learners, they will actually feel more at home and comfortable to pursue their studies. Strong counseling, as I've indicated, allows for drop-in learners to counselors to get the needed support pertaining to their challenges. And academic support, as I've given, it's a given in terms of the university exists for teaching and learning. And that teaching and learning must actually be learner-centered if learners' progression is to be enhanced. In distance education, these are the kind of multitudes that you may actually find. And you have to actually deal with them in a manner that they will feel accepted by the university. Then this actually calls for a well-focused orientation program. An orientation program that does not only last a day or a week, but that should actually progress for almost the whole of a semester, so that they really get grounded on what is expected of them in the university and so forth. So in terms of perspective, particularly in open and distance learning, learner support has tended to be treated as a separate subsystem of the other, of the academics. One would get a dedicated team of learner support officers and a dedicated team of academics working parallel. And this has resulted actually in some kind of silos where the other hand may not actually know what the other hand is actually doing. However, that situation is changing, where the academic person is trained to actually manage both sides of the coin. The learner support, counseling, social counseling, psychosocial counseling, and the academic part. Initially, when open and distance learning or distance education started, there was actually no learner support provided. Learners learned at a distance in what was called correspondence education. However, limited as it was, learners did receive assignment feedback and did receive materials, but the materials were not written like the current materials that we have, where learner support is part of the curriculum design and embedded in the self-learning materials. Then later we had support through radio and television, and there was a movement towards face-to-face. In some institutions, it remained very limited. These changes actually took place after the International Conference on Distance Education in 1980. That's when we started seeing open universities actually bringing in face-to-face learner support from time to time, and improving the support in terms of audios, later videos, and so forth. However, today we have an integrated curriculum design, teaching and learning that embraces learner support. And we have promoted learner support by adopting blended approaches and leveraging on ICTs. In other words, we have, as we speak, where open universities are actually using SMS mobile technology to support learners in remote areas or to remind learners of deadlines of assignments. We have other universities actually using other social media like Facebook to actually share the developments taking place in the university or announcements and so forth. It is those kind of events that actually sustain the learner. When the learner gets a newsletter, either through radio or through print or through social media and so forth, that on its own makes the learner feel she's part of the university, and it actually assists in ensuring that she does not decide to leave or drop out, but continues in his or her studies. So the role of ICTs has actually been leveraged on by a number of universities, both conventional and dedicated ODLs. So in all universities, normally you find that there is the University Students' Affairs. That focuses on ensuring a conducive and supportive environment in the university-wide is established. And as I have indicated, administrative counseling and academic support are part of the responsibilities of the Students' Affairs faculty. And this is the faculty that ensures that student affairs relating to issues of learner governance, what we normally refer as Student Representative Council, are established, and learners are offered a voice through which they can actually register commendations, complaints, or grievances, or assist the university management in terms of good governance. We know we put some of these structures and they end up working against us. But in today's world where learners have certain rights, it is only proper to have a robust learner governance that keeps management informed of the student needs. At universities, learner support that addresses both physical and social needs may be provided through some resource centers. For instance, the Career Development Center, the Language Center. In most developing countries, the use of English as a second language or third language for some students is an issue. And as a result, it is the responsibility of the university, if it is offering all its programs through the English language, to ensure that learners who have a deficit in English language are actually supported so that they have a very good working language to cope with the studies that are, or tuition that is provided in English. obviously the libraries, technology, and of late, some universities have actually established healthy and wellness centers, going beyond the mere physical grounds for sports and so forth, where they bring in stakeholders from the healthy sector and from industry to actually interact with learners in terms of wellness and so forth. We also have centers like the legal clinic. Our learners are adults, and they are also vulnerable to getting into trouble, and they don't have money. And once they are in trouble because of that traffic offense or any other related activity that may violate the law, if the university has a legal clinic, then that normally helps the students who cannot afford private attorneys to actually seek help from the legal clinic or legal center. So those are some of the resource centers that are put up by universities to ensure that learners' core business of learning is not affected by issues related to either language, to either poor resourced libraries, or to technology. Recently, I was impressed by one university which has actually extended its email system and so forth. This is a university in a less developed context, and they have tried their level best to ensure that their learners are also connected through the email so that whoever wants to communicate with them can actually do so. And that actually renders learner support to be improved. I have indicated that we have either a centralized or a decentralized learner support system. A centralized learner support system is where we have a national center responsible for all learner support services. However, this has proved to be very difficult in the sense that officers find it not easy to be traveling the breadth of the country, and as a result, there has been a move from centralization to a decentralized learner support system where universities provide either campuses at regional level or regional centers where they offer services. In other words, trying to bring the services as closer to the learners as possible, and while still getting support from the national center or from the main campus. There are cases that actually demonstrate what I'm talking about. And case one indicated the following goals in terms of learner support: that establishing the learner support component of the university was meant to develop and implement policies and quality assurance mechanism towards an effective and sustainable learner support system. In other words, empowering the lecturers, the tutors, to operate within a policy framework where there are performance indicators that actually demonstrate that the program is being offered within a framework that is benchmarked with good practice from elsewhere in the world. Their goal for learner support is also to establish and maintain self-improvement, self-sustaining, accessible, and cost-effective learner support services and systems as a way of ensuring quality of teaching and learning at a distance. In other words, what they need to do, if you need to have that in place, they have to train the learners, they have to mentor the learners, train them in study skills, train them in time management. Those are critical. If they can't manage their time, then they will not be self-directed in a gainful manner. They cannot improve. So that actually minimizes the cost of providing learner support, where they are empowered to form study groups, empowered to form learning communities, empowered to actually establish governing structures wherever they are. This does not only happen on its own. It only happens when the faculty takes a deliberate move to ensure that such capacity building is actually undertaken for learners, and establishing a mentoring system, ensuring that from time to time they actually arrange motivation seminars where they bring people from industry to interact with learners. They bring experts to actually motivate and role models. For instance, those who have been successful in distance education, the alumni can actually be brought to showcase that, yes, indeed, open and distance learning works. And it works because of the learner support system. So, orientation of students, as I have indicated, is critical. They need to know how the university works. They need to know where to get the necessary assistance. For instance, if they have a social challenge, where do they go? If they have a security challenge, is there a security office that ensures that there is order within the university and they can go and appeal for help? Because we know certain behaviors like sexual harassment do occur in university. So where do they go? Because once somebody is experiencing sexual harassment, that person cannot learn. So even if he is an academic, that person cannot perform. But there should be structures within the university where the learners and their tutors can actually seek for help. So in other words, learner support, whilst I'm speaking here, focusing on learners, it's also meant to support the tutors, the learners, the lecturers, so that they can support the learners. So you cannot actually hire tutors and just deploy them and say they will hit the ground running. You need to train them so that they understand the profile of the learner, so that they know how to treat a conventional learner and even a part-time learner or a distance learner. Where there is no training, organized by the university, you will find that there will be more complaints by students that the tutors are not helping them, that the lecturers are not helping them. And that results in some kind of discord between the student body and management. So if the university is actually proactive, trains the lecturers or tutors to ensure that they are well grounded in terms of providing learner support services. Because if an academic is actually presenting a lecture and the learner asks him a different thing from what is being taught, And if he cannot actually address that issue and continues with his lecture, then it means he has not actually supported that individual learner. So orientation is critical. They need to know how to use the library facilities. They need to know how to do the search for resources in the library. They need to know how to use the technology. I mean, some universities have actually made it compulsory that all first years take ICT, information and communication module. Similarly, just like they take English and communication study skills to ground them. Because if you don't actually support them, train them on how to use computers, it means they are not going to be effective in actually utilizing electronic resources. To design and provide information on learning opportunities and strategies for successful learning. I mean, that's the responsibility of the university, to ensure provision of information, because from time to time universities get offers in terms of scholarship, offers in terms of internship, offers in terms of attachment. It is this kind of information that must actually eventually get to the learners. And it can only get to the learners provided there is a robust learner support system. And the lecturers or the advisors approach students and motivate them to take the learning opportunities, whether it's study tours or exchange and so forth. But if you put it on the board and expect a response, very few of them will actually read what is on the notice board, particularly those with cell phones. But if you send that information through SMS, definitely there is no one who is going to ignore that information, because each time the message gets into the SMS, they are so addicted to it, they will actually open. So you are sure when you use some of these technologies to convey news, to convey opportunities that are available, learners will actually get. Then provide academic support to enable students to succeed in their studies. I mean, that is one of their goals. Provide psychosocial counseling services and other forms of non-academic learner support in order to improve throughput. Develop tutor training programs to enable part-time tutors, markers, examiners to facilitate quality learning and become efficient in carrying out their responsibilities. And as I have pointed out, if the university is not proactive, all those duties will actually be compromised. There will be poor marking, where the tutor just makes a big mark and decides from his head to put either 2 out of 10, not indicating where the 2 comes from. So that actually does not help the learner, because the learner would not actually know how he actually scored a 2 instead of a 9 out of 10. So the goal of this institution is also to assist students in developing problem-solving skills and become lifelong learners. Problem-solving skills is a key competency for the 21st century learner. And again, lifelong learning is what is the buzzword and is what is expected from each individual, because technology change. This is why some people say if you are going to do a BSc in technology that takes 5 years, by the time you are on your 5th year, what you learned in first year and second year is no longer valid, because technology changes so fast. The other goal is to develop and implement a monitoring and evaluation system for the purpose of improving student learning outcomes and academic standards. This is where we emphasize internal quality audits so that the kind of learner support system that you implement makes you reap the kind of results or outcomes that you intend to achieve. Then what are the challenges that are addressed by learner support, and whether it's conventional or distance? They are personal circumstances that actually make students not progress accordingly. And it is when we have measures put in place to ensure that personal issues or circumstances are actually addressed, or measures taken to mitigate those issues, as they are a barrier to learning. Because if a learner's attention is more into problems that are personal, for instance, if the partner is abusive, that actually affects the learner. So those personal issues, the university cannot say, look, it is not our business is focused on teaching and learning. But if you limit your responsibilities to only teaching and learning, the chances are that you will be teaching people who are physically present but mentally absent. And when you administer an assessment or a test or an exam, they all fail, and you get surprised. Why are they failing when you are such a good teacher? So in other words, we have to go out of our zones and address some of these challenges. For distance learners, for instance, job responsibilities, balancing job and family affects their performance. Long distances from home and study centers has been indicated for a long time as a major challenge. Domestic responsibilities, I know our mothers, our sisters, they work. They are also wives, they are mothers, they are sisters. They cook. Balancing study with all those varied domestic duties or chores, it's a challenge. And at times, learners with those problems, what they just need to hear, they just need an ear to listen to their problems. Then they can move on. It's not that the lecturer or the tutor or the advisor will solve all the problems. But the mere presence of a figure who can actually invest time in listening to their problems, that on its own transforms the learner. And the learner will be happy that at least there is somebody who has listened to her problems. So I've indicated time management, the inability to manage time, that is critical. Learners procrastinate, and as a result, because of poor management of time, they fail to deliver assignments on stipulated dates and so forth. Yes, we say we must be flexible, but the flexibility should be operated within certain parameters that enable the learner to progress and complete the course. We may say we are open as to people, as to places, as to the manner they work. But if we leave them without proper guidelines, without making them understand that time frames are actually critical, then they will actually not manage their time properly. Little or no contact with fellow students. Whilst this is peculiar to distance education, even in conventional universities, there are those isolated incidents where you have a learner who may be a learner because the interpersonal or social networking skills are not, she's not equipped, or because of culture and so forth. It is therefore the role of the advisors at the university to ensure that such individuals are brought on board. You don't change them drastically, but you empower them, you provide the capacity for them to be able to get the skills for networking. Because when they graduate, they will actually need to network if they are to succeed in their businesses or occupations. That also relates to no support from friends, workmates, and supervisors, particularly working learners at times. They don't get that kind of support when they need it, and that actually is a challenge that somehow or the other the university should actually devise strategies of mitigating those kind of support. Hence, the issue of mentoring is critical, where you have an advisor who mentors certain learners who may have been identified as risk learners who can actually drop out of the system. Then we have issues of academic circumstances affecting learning, and this could include inadequate finances for learners to attend vacation schools. We know we have summer and winter schools, and most universities organize for their distance learners these vacation schools. And also the issue of poor or lack of study environment. Some learners, particularly in crowded townships and so forth, may not actually have a study space at home, and as a result, that may affect them working outside the university at home. We know, for instance, like even in conventional settings, universities, accommodation is normally not available for all learners, and as a result, others actually rent in the townships, and they may actually, the environment might actually compromise their learning beyond the classroom walls. Then inability to write academic assignment. This is when they have not been, grounded in academic writing and so forth. They would need this kind of support. Little or no contact with their tutors and fellow students. These are particularly, for instance, in remote areas or even inmates where the rules might actually allow the learner not even to see the tutor or other fellow students. The social circumstances, lack of professional counseling in some parts of the country, particularly if the regional setting or there are no officers. In other words, if the university has not created that outreach program, some of them might not actually get counseling, or they might get delayed counseling. Social pressure from home and community affect motivation. This actually affects both males and female students. Pressure relating to funerals, relating to weddings, relating to the general expectations from the family members. If you are a daughter-in-law in certain communities, you are expected to do a number of chores and so forth, then that can actually affect your performance. Poor assignment guidance in marked assignments, I think I've touched on that one. In terms of when a learner cannot tell where were the marks attained in an assignment, when there is poor feedback in terms of comments that are not specific, the comments that may actually interfere with the learner's, self-esteem, where words like poor, go and read, and so forth, you are not university material. Such comments actually discourage learners and can actually complicate the situation such that they actually drop out. And in some universities, it's the issue of inadequate staff. They respond to the surge in terms of the demand for higher education, but they don't get similar funding from governments that matches the kind of numbers that they've been requested to enroll. English language, we have indicated that it's a huge challenge. And for ODL, the challenge has been that some lecturers, part-time tutors, professors are not familiar with the ODL mode of delivery. And as a result, they transfer the practices that they are used to or familiar to distance learners, and that actually complicates things because there will be a mismatch in terms of what the learners expect and what the lecturers actually offer. Then, in terms of academic support, what is this institution doing? They provide vacation schools. That is, when they bring learners and tutors together to actually do the academic support, go over the assignments, teach areas that they've identified from the assignments that learners have difficulty in, or attend to areas that learners may have brought forward through emails, through letters, or through telephone calls. So the vacation schools or summer schools or winter schools are basically meant to ensure that they close the gaps that have been raised by learners or that the lecturers have actually identified from the assignments, or where new content has actually been brought to the fold in terms of the discipline. So it's the same with weekend tutorials. For instance, this university, they have interactive video conference where they have 3 learning centers that are connected. So what they do with the video conference is that they just get one lecturer who will teach the multitude of students in all the 3 campuses and so forth. They also have tutorials, telephone tutorials, where they enter into a partnership with a mobile provider or the telephone provider. And obviously, marking assignments and orientation, those are part and parcel of the academic support so that learners are retained and completion rate is improved. So are the tutorial manuals. And normally, in order to stay on top of the game in learner support, action research by tutors or lecturers is critical, because it is from action research that you can pick up issues for improvement. And the non-academic and other psychosocial support, I've touched on that. In case 2, we have a decentralized learner support system that is supported by a regional services division at the headquarters, and there are regional centers and study centers. In other words, academic support takes place at the regional centers and at the study centers. Basically, this is what is delivered in terms of the package for learner support: face-to-face counseling, audio cassette, TV broadcasting, teleconferencing, feedback, internet-based delivery, radio broadcasting, practical training for both learners and tutors, and so forth. Then there is a student support services network. In other words, this is what I was saying when the university takes education to the doorstep of the learners. In other words, instead of learners coming to the main campus, the university spreads its wings, goes to where the learners are, and establishes student support services in all their campuses in order to address the grievances and so forth. And through action research, they use this to collect information and offer support services, improved support services. So, for instance, this is what they are offering in terms of induction, academic counseling, library assignment feedback projects for PhDs, and it is critical that the higher education institution must actually have a website and a newsletter, as I have pointed out. These actually bring about the social belongingness, and the participation of learners in the newsletters is critical. In terms of administration, this is what they have. They have a strong student registration and readmission process. They issue ID card and counseling schedules, assignments, submission, student assignment, and it is with the support of the learner support services that the registrar and all other people are able to arrange the examination and assessment and so forth, and the recording of the results of exams and so forth. So at the regional center, what are the activities that take place at the regional center? Like I have indicated, taking the education to the people, admission, evaluation of assignments, orientation, training of coordinators, seminars, workshops. So basically, the regional center operates like an independent campus. Then, obviously, promotional activities are critical in terms of what is it that you showcase to your stakeholders, and in the process makes the belongingness of learners enhanced. There are study centers. The study centers also operate just like the regional centers. Those are the activities: academic counseling, assignment evaluation, orientation, library services, information, end of term examinations. Similarly, the study centers do the same thing. However, what you need to note is that where the university offers computer science, engineering, and so forth, normally the university, if it does not have the facilities, it must actually ensure that they enter into shared use of facilities with other universities or technicons or technology centers and so forth, so that the learners have the opportunity to actually engage in practicals. Similarly, like in nursing, there need to be a partnership, networking with hospitals at all levels. Special study centers, these are meant for disadvantaged groups. I've already mentioned inmates, remote learners, women, physically challenged. And there is the issue of partnership, where a mega university may actually partner with smaller institutions across the globe so that it has the reach in other contexts and so forth. And the partner institute will actually do the work on behalf of the mega university. Case 3 is basically where you have similar a national center and regional centers, basically providing modules, study guides, tutorial letters, form part of the delivery with limited face-to-face, which in this university is 6 hours per semester. The first sessions is used for familiarization of the learner in terms of the course structure, overview of contact, guidance on assignment, logistics of the course, consultations with tutors, and how to form study groups and so forth. And the second session takes midway before the examination, to review what the university support system has been, particularly in terms of assignments and so forth. Then in this one shows how learner support has actually changed. From 1971 to 1976, this university allocated just a counselor was linked to student, and there was a module for tutor who provided face-to-face and regional staff, and weekend residential school was actually compulsory. But it moved on, where tutor counselor became both an academic and counseling. So there was merging. Now, learner support for psychosocial support was not discriminated from the academic. So the tutor actually did both, or is actually doing. Include thinking skills, problem solving, and promotion of collaboration in terms of team skills, use of suitable technologies, reflection, self-review, and convergence of education, labor market, and student. These are critical for the new learner. How about for those learners who are in deeply marginalized contexts? We are saying deeply marginalized context, there is no connectivity. Basically, there are no services that can enhance the learner. And we have here nomadic communities, inmates, those living in remote islands, mountains, valleys, deserts. And what are we saying? We are saying it is possible to actually be innovative and bring what we call classroom without walls. This is an innovation by what we call an Aptus, where this gadget is an offline gadget that operates more or less like a computer that is connected. In other words, you can take this gadget to a remote area where there is no connectivity, loaded with all the learning materials, and if learners have tablets, they can actually log into that gadget and download information or learn from the Moodle platform, obviously with a mentor facilitating. So we are basically saying the Aptus is not a solution for connecting to the internet, but it is an alternative of offering possibilities for those in deeply marginalized areas. This gadget has been tested in 15 countries, and it has proved to be effective. It delivers connected learning in unconnected environment, and it has high impact with low cost. It costs only about $100. So for learner support, it can be used as a mobile hub for student life services and as a repository for learner support resources and open educational resources, and can be used as a means of knowledge sharing and peer support among learners, as it can accommodate up to 20 learners. So learner support, colleagues, is critical for higher education learners in all contexts if they are to achieve their goals, and if higher education institutions are to achieve a return on investment in terms of human capital. The emerging technologies and their uptake by learners call for an urgent paradigm shift, especially by policymakers, administrators, lecturers, and the entire student body to in traditional higher education institutions or open universities, so that there is this uptake of technology to enhance completion. Learner support, policy framework, implementation mechanism are therefore critical if we are to have good practice in both dual mode and conventional. Those are the colleagues that I wish to acknowledge: Professor Alan Tate, Professor Bezos, Mitchell Grunder, and the Distance Education Association of Southern Africa for providing the information that I've shared with you. Thank you very much.
researched lecturer, Dr. Godson Gatsha. You took us through from how it was before with face-to-face, with correspondence lectures where you get your materials from the mail, you're on your own, you just go and write exams, you pass, you fail, you pay for another exam. To this day and age where if you cannot come to us, we come to you. And we come to you irrespective of your circumstances, irrespective of where you live, irrespective of whether you have disability or not. We are not just providing you the material, but we are providing you the support that you needed, the personal support, the emotional support, the wellness support to make sure that you grasp the concept and you are able to function effectively. I think it is noble for us in this 21st century to be moving in that direction. However, you pointed out to us that that movement doesn't come cheap. Because in the old paradigm, if I'm hired to teach physics, that's all I do. I don't care whether the student is hungry, whether you have problems at home, just come to my class, have a nice day. Instead, we have a student support services. If you have problems, go to the student support services. But now, the lecturer must be the father, the mother, the friend, and everything to the student. You must be able to see from the assignment that something is wrong with them. You must be able to see that they are not coping, and you make sure that that issue is dealt with immediately. We must have their personal profile. They are not just statistics that I have 30 students, but how many of them have sickle cell? How many of them are slow learner? How many of them are coming from abused home? All of that we have to put into it. You also gave us food for thought in terms of we need an integrated support system. And this calls for a retraining of our lecturers, of our tutors, for them to be fully engaged in the life of our students and the services that we provide them. That we must be active listener and we must undertake meaningful engagement with our students. I think this is very noble because once we do all of this, there will be no difference between a face-to-face student or an open learning student. I think I want to thank you for giving us this new knowledge and also providing us a roadmap on how to get there. And I think I will ask the audience to give you a round of applause for a good presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Godson and Professor Jacob. Well, that was quite an interesting presentation, especially towards the end when you introduced the Aptus, which is a neat device which you can take out into rural areas and allow students to learn without connecting to the internet. You know, COL has done some amazing things in terms of getting education out there and providing learner support. So it was good for us and good for the audience who have been following this particular lecture online. To have a look at that, perhaps they can go online to the COL website and learn a little bit more about that. So, colleagues, that concludes the 5th distinguished lecture of the OUSL Distinguished Lecture Series. I would like to officially thank Dr. Godson Gatsha for coming here for all the way from Canada and for delivering this excellent lecture. And I would also like to thank Professor Jacob Opte for coming here and chairing this session and providing his insights and his takes on what Dr. Godson has mentioned to us today. With that, colleagues, I think we'll have to wrap up today's session, and we look forward to another distinguished lecture next month. We are in the process of finalizing the details of the speaker. You can visit our website for more details, and we will be sending out the usual emailer quite soon. We would also like to thank the Center for Educational Technology and Media, who is recording this particular session. There's a tireless team behind the scenes who are working with us and getting the nitty-gritty done in terms of live broadcasting this session as well as recording it to be added onto YouTube so that you can watch it later on. So with that, again, thank you very much and have a good evening.